Three games in action today around the NBA. Kind of quiet, not around the NBA, but the games brought it. Me and Rylan Stiles, we're going to break everything down on today's Locked On NBA Game Night. Now,
when that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. I'm Haize, host of Locked On Bulls, and I'm joined by Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to kind of recap this night.
Absolutely. By the way, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, we got to get into it. We're going to start off right in order today. The Cavs defeated the Bucks 124-101 in this game. Donovan Mitchell scored 27 points. Darius Garland with 16 points. The Cleveland Cavaliers are now 15-1 at home. How'd you feel about this game?
Yeah, I thought that this was a good win for the Cavs. They obviously had the rest advantage with the Bucks playing on Tuesday, but the Cavs continue to roll, and it's a really tough time beating them anywhere, but especially in Cleveland, and especially when Dean Wade goes 4 for 5, and Quinn Snyder today said that they're unstoppable when Dean Wade is shooting the ball like this. And I kind of agree with them that Dean Wade might be the key for this team, even though they have all these other stars.
Yeah, it's funny enough because Matt Moore, we do the midday Locked On NBA episode, and he always talks about the impact that Dean Wade has. And like the Cavs have some ridiculous record in games where Dean Wade plays as well. Like it's just funny how he does make an impact for this team, even though the stat sheet doesn't always say that to you, but he definitely makes an impact. The Milwaukee Bucks were without Dame Lillard in this game. The Bucks have had a really good stretch here. This is only their third loss since November 18th. How do you view the Bucks? I know we're going to talk a lot about the Cavs, but how do you view the Bucks right now? Do you see them as a serious contender in the Eastern Conference, or do you think they're just a team that's going to win a lot of games and maybe have some difficulty in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that they found their footing, and that's been the key for them. They started out really bad. I mean, Haize, we were talking about this being over for Giannis, for the Bucks, it was over after 2 weeks, and now they're kind of back where they belong at the top of the East. I feel good about them. I think that you give them a full 3/4 of a season now where they're back on track. They're going to get to grow that rapport with Dame and Giannis more, as Dame missed tonight, but he won't be out for long term. So as they grow together, come playoff time, you still have that recipe of if you get an outlier AJ Green shooting night and Giannis is unstoppable and you have a Brook Lopez return the clock backward series, they're capable of winning. I mean, you saw what they did Tuesday to Oklahoma City, where they just stifled a really good team offensively, and they were able to grit their teeth and win a game. They scored 97 points in that game. The Thunder could not have played better defense than to hold Giannis and Dame under 100, and the Bucks won in a pretty convincing fashion on Tuesday night. So that kind of stuff leads me to believe that this is a team you're going to have to take seriously in the playoffs, regardless of record, regardless of narrative. It's a star-driven league, and they have Dame, they have Giannis, and they just have the capabilities of making life really tough on you.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that they've turned their defense around, at the start of the season, they looked completely old and out of rhythm defensively, and that defense has steadily got better to now. It's like, it is a really good defense. As long as you have Dame and Giannis playing at the level that we know that they can play at, they can beat anyone. I personally still look at them and I say, I want to see how much this is going to maintain over the season, especially now with Chris Middleton back. How quickly does he kind of get back in rhythm and look like himself again? But you can't deny that this Bucks team has just been good from top to bottom. They're going to keep winning a lot of games, but the Cavs did pull this one out. They're they've only got 4 losses on the season. They're 24-4 on the season. They're beating teams with the second best point differential in the league at 11.1, only second to the OKC Thunder. Should they be the favorite in the East? Is that where we're at this point, or is it still Boston?
I think it's still Boston. I think that this has been a very fun story for Cleveland, and I am very much impressed with what they've done so far. There are still some playoff concerns with a small guard backcourt, how they're going to defend in that setting. Not to say they can't do it. It's just that there's still more questions with them than there are questions with Boston, who is capable of not only running you out of the gym, but of course they have the capabilities of winning close games as well. So I just think that Boston, regardless of record, is still the favorites, not only in the East, but in the entire NBA.
Yeah, I mean they're the defending champions. They've done it before. They're so good at what they do well. Like and teams just aren't able to stop them. Lost to the Chicago Bulls aside, last night, but the Boston Celtics are just so good. And while this Cavs team too, like from top to bottom, I love how like Donovan Mitchell is able to kind of pick his spots now because everybody's really stepped up on this team and really falling into their roles well. And I love how they do it by like death by 1,000 cuts. You don't know where it's going to come from. And if for some reason you do slow them down, Donovan Mitchell can take over a game at any point in time. Darius Garland's starting to show a little bit more ability to that. But I think the key thing for this Cavaliers team to me is still going to be Evan Mobley. How Evan Mobley can exploit matchups, and just having him and Jared Allen as your front court is something that I don't think a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference are going to be prepared for.
Yeah, I think that those two guys down low will give teams fits. And going back to Boston, I mean, Kristaps Porzingis is a unicorn, literally.
Yeah.
But he's also not always the most reliable. Like, what if he's out for that series? And you can run into some really good luck and kind of capitalizing on some misfortune from your opponent, as we saw last postseason, where you saw miracle runs due to some injuries around the league. And so I would not rule out the Cavs. I think the Cavs are the most fun team to watch in the league right now with what they're able to do. They just have more concerns long-term than Boston does, because we just saw Boston win a title. But man, if you tell me that you can trust their perimeter defenders, and if they swing a trade deadline deal and get another perimeter defender, then they really boost their case, which is already, I think, the second best case in the East.
Yeah, and I mean, both these teams, even swinging back to the Milwaukee Bucks, it came out from Mark Stein earlier today that the Bucks could be looking to add a lob threat to pair with Brook Lopez. And I tell you what, if the Bucks can add that, now it sounds easier on paper to add, let's go add a lob threat, but if they're able to add the right guy with a complementary skill set, it could really help them in their playoff run too, because Bobby Portis just isn't the Bobby Portis we've seen in years past for this Milwaukee Bucks team.
Yeah, I think that the pumpkin, he's turned back to a pumpkin, so to say, of the fairy tale of, like, he had a Linsanity run in that finals, and you can't take that away from him. You can't take that away from Bucks lore and history, but he's just not it right now. He's not there. I think that I think the Milwaukee Bucks, they have the right stuff on paper, especially if they can go make another trade, because I love that you have Andre Jackson, who gave Shea fits on Tuesday. That kind of a defender next to Giannis, and with Lopez in there down low, and with this magical lob threat that you're going to go trade for, that you would hope can defend down low as well, you could really give teams trouble and kind of limit their stars whenever there is no limiting your stars. Like the Milwaukee Bucks are in a position where if they can tighten down their defense, nobody can do anything against Giannis and like stop him from getting his numbers. We know that Dame can bomb it from all over the floor. You would have a serious leg up in that series if you can go get a lob threat to play vertically offensively, and then most lob threats are quality defenders.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the Bucks can add. I've completely coming into this season, the Bucks have now kind of caught back up with what I thought they would be coming into the season. That's a really good team that's going to win a lot of regular season games. I do have some questions about them in the playoffs, but of course, we'll answer that as we get closer. Still a lot of season left to be played. But just how the season started for them looks so bad. I'm just glad that they were able to turn it around, because Giannis is such a special talent. And part of what Giannis has talked about is he wants to compete for titles. And so we'll see if the Milwaukee Bucks can continue to evolve that team to keep putting them in that position, because the last thing the Milwaukee Bucks want is Giannis Antetokounmpo asking for a trade, because if that happens, everything is done at that point.
Yeah, if that happens, you just pack up the farm and go home. I mean, I don't even know what a Giannis trade would look like. He's like, what would be, you're just not going to get the value of Giannis, no matter what the pick package is, no matter what the young players are. You're never going to recoup what Giannis gives you. So I just think that it would send you into a devastating rebuild.
Yeah. I'm sure the Milwaukee Bucks fans are glad that this season turned around and that conversation could stop, because
we had reached Photoshop points. Like, we had the Photoshop of Houston. Like, this could have gone south for Milwaukee. So I'm glad that they have an NBA Cup championship. Shout out Darvin Ham, 2-0 in the Cup. Like, and now they can kind of build on this.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to talk about another team that's hoping to build some momentum finally. That is the Philadelphia 76ers, who came out, on top today. We'll talk about that. But first, we got to get into a message from a couple of our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Looking to make this basketball season even more exciting, Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app, making it simple and fun to turn your sports knowledge into real money. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in winnings awarded, it's the best place to run your game and get real money sports action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections like points, rebounds, or assists, and you could win up to 1,000 times your entry. PrizePicks also puts its members first in fast, safe, and secure withdrawals, and they're offering incredible holiday promotions like Pickmas, featuring 2 free picks this December and over $30 million in rewards. So why wait? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. This episode is also brought to you guys by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in a discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team, complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you can get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. More Locked On Game Night coming up next. All right, we got another game to get into. The Philadelphia 76ers 108-98 against the Charlotte Hornets. And this is a game that Joel Embiid actually made his return back, and he looked good. This may have been the best Joel has looked this season. 34 points on 12 of 24 shooting, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Rylan, how you feeling about this game, man?
I thought that this was, in fact, the best game that Joel's played in this season. And I'm a sucker for the Philadelphia 76ers. I just cannot quit them. They burn me every single year, Haize. And every single year, right there on the preview show of Locked On Thunder, I'm picking them to go to the West Conference Final, to go to the Eastern Conference Finals and make this run. And I was silly enough to have them at the top of the East standings because I thought that even with the injury concerns of Paul George and Joel Embiid, that Therese Maxey and Nick Nurse would be enough to stack regular season wins. But this has been a forgettable year for Philadelphia. They've ran into bad injury after bad injury, and now Jared McCain's out, which is a huge deal for them. Mm-hmm. I thought that the Sixers needed this win in a big way, which isn't breaking news. But when you're facing the Hornets without LaMelo, who just lost to the Wizards, you have to pick up a win. And the fact that they were able to, with Paul George going 2 for 12, so he's pretty much a non-factor, without Jared McCain in the lineup, period, and you got enough to win this game, I thought was a big deal for them. And eventually, we have to stop asking if this is the game that turns around their season, and it actually has to be the game that turns around their season.
Yeah, I mean, and they've quietly strung together what they're 6-2, I believe, in their last 8 games. So, like, they're quietly starting to win more and more games. And now with Joel Embiid being back healthy, you got more opportunity to get him, Paul George, Maxey out there together. So this is an opportunity for them to start building some of that momentum. But you got to do it. I look at it and I say this: you really got to make a push before the end of January if you really want to not be too far behind. Now, we know that Eastern Conference, things are really close in it. They're only 1.5 games back from technically a play-in spot. So they it's not like a lot of space that they have to make it up to get into the postseason, but they just got to build some momentum. You need players to stay healthy to build that momentum.
Yeah, they have to stay healthy. There's no more room for error or room for bad luck, because if you ran into bad luck this time, it's pretty much over with either Embiid or Paul George. I will say, masked Embiid, one of the better masked players of all time. I mean, you think of the hierarchy of masked players. For me, it's Joel near the top, but I thought it was an impressive win because of what you were able to get from these guys, where you had a Kelly Oubre, 8 for 10 night. You had a Ricky Council Jr. game. Haize, Ricky Council Jr. got in there with 11 points. I mean, look at that. Only one missed shot from him. And so they're just finding ways to win. And I think that they're going to stay healthy from here on out, because like with Embiid, there's obviously a ton of talk around that, but he couldn't help the fact that he got a sinus fracture like that. Yeah. That's not Embiid being soft or like Embiid resting or whatever. That's just like a bad luck situation. Like, I think he wants to play. I think he's going to play moving forward with this mask, to where once you get Maxey and Paul George and Embiid comfortable together, I still fully believe in that being a pretty lethal combination. And when most of your games are against the Eastern Conference and most of the East is not very competitive, you should be able to rack up the wins necessary to climb back up the standings.
Yeah, it's just gonna, like you said, they don't have any more room for bad luck, and maybe Mass and Embiid is the thing that they need him to be for the rest of this time. Like, but when you have Joel, when you have Maxey, and then Paul George, of course he didn't play good in this game, but you have that talent. I was really favorable of what they did this offseason. I loved what the 76ers did this offseason of rebuilding that roster, using the space that they had to bring in some new talent around Embiid. Now it just comes down to staying healthy. And we don't know what's the future is going to hold for McCain or not, but like Jared McCain has been such a Cinderella story for this team. But now it's down to the vets to get to work and be that team that we've seen on paper that you can be. You just got to start being that consistently.
Yeah, they're going to have to just show you who they are. And who they are is like they have 3 all-stars on this team. I think Maxey's an all-star level player. Embiid is an all-star. Paul George is an all-star. And it's going to have to click for them. What's been important, I think, for Philadelphia is that in a game like this for Paul George to get a win, and he goes 1 for 7, 2 for 12, but he does chip in 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, and a block. Having the mindset of these veterans who, like Paul George, didn't have a game that you want. Like, no veteran wants to go out there and only make 5 points. But he doesn't let that seep into his defensive end of the floor. He doesn't let that leak into other parts of his game. He still gave you a quality outing and a +5 in this one in his minutes. So you were able to overcome a poor shooting night. And now you're going to have to roll the dice until if and when Jared McCain comes back. You're going to have to roll the dice and hope that you get a Ricky Council Jr. game today. Maybe the next game it's a Kyle Lowry game. Maybe the next game it's a whoever. You're going to need to get a game from somebody that we come away from impressed by. But I think that they have enough pieces to flip through the Rolodex of, like, I would trust that on any given night they can find one other guy who's red hot.
Yeah, and I mean, Kelly Oubre Jr. had a great game today, and like watching this game, when Kelly Oubre Jr. has confidence, like it's just weird how much of a different player he is when he hits a couple of shots early and gets in rhythm. Like you would look at him and think like he has to be one of the better players on this team, and it's like it's just not that consistently. So
yeah, when he's confident, I mean he's always looking good on the court, but he's really playing good on the court when he is confident.
Yep. The Hornets, I know we've talked a lot about the 76ers in this. The Hornets are 7-21. No LaMelo Ball in this game. My question to you is, where do you have them ranked in your Cooper Flag sweepstakes? Because I don't have them looking to do anything else this season.
Haize, I'm an eternal optimist, and so when they were on that early season run, I was on game nights on Saturdays because they'd play a lot of Saturdays early on, and I was like, this team could be that spunky Eastern play-in team that just gets in there, and who knows what happens. It's over. I mean, the season's over in terms of like getting to the postseason, but they do have some fun pieces that you can still watch. I mean, we know what LaMelo and Brandon Miller are. Neither one of those guys were in there tonight for the Hornets, which is going to be a dejecting blow for them. But the way that they're playing, whenever you see them at full strength, of like whenever you get Trey Mann back and you get LaMelo back and you get Brandon Miller back, it's at least a fun losing team, which is something that you couldn't have really said about Charlotte in the past. Yeah. I just think that it's going to be time for them to once again prioritize the draft and hope that they get the luck necessary. Because if they do land Flag and you mix him in with those other guys of Miller and LaMelo, oh my goodness, now we're talking about a top 6 seed in the East.
Yeah, and I was optimistic with the Hornets coming into the season because I looked at it and said, if LaMelo Ball can stay healthy, like the last time LaMelo was really healthy, they were an over 40-win team. And so in the East, that absolutely gets you into the playoffs. And so, but they just don't stay healthy. Mark Williams is another young player that I like a lot. he just can't stay on the basketball court. They've gotten 25 games out of him from over the last 2 seasons so far. So, if they ever can have relative health, I do think that this is a Hornets team that can at least compete for the play-in and surprise some teams. But that health is just such a major factor for them that they just don't ever have.
Yeah, they never get the health. I do think that Micic had a really good game tonight for Charlotte. He's been a guy who dominated Europe and in the NBA. He's been so up and down. So it was good to see him have 50% shooting with 20 points, 4 assists, and a rebound. By the same token, somebody has to score. When he strip away Trey Mann and you strip away LaMelo and Brandon Miller, somebody's got to get the points. You're not just going to go out there in the modern NBA and score like 70 points. But it was still a good game from him. A good game from Cody Martin. I thought that the Hornets, Haize, one thing I will say about the Hornets, they at least competed tonight. Like, I don't feel like the Hornets rolled over. I feel like they were out-talented. And like, there's nothing you can really do about that. But the effort level was there, I thought.
I completely agree with you there. Completely agree. Well, I know one game that we're probably going to agree on, and that's the OKC Thunder against the Miami Heat coming up next. Before we get into that, we got to get to a message from FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's giving you guys a little bit of a leg up. The fact that you don't have to go to a bunch of other sites to get all the information that you need to make an informed bet on the same page where you can place your bet, that's something that FanDuel is giving you that a lot of other sites do not give you. You just got to visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Or game night coming up next. All right, one of our teams played today, and luckily it was the OKC Thunder today against the Miami Heat, winning 104-97. Jimmy Butler goes down with an ankle injury early in this game, really doesn't have an impact in this game overall. But the Miami Heat's offense, when Jimmy Butler's not in there and he's not playing well, it's ugly. It's very ugly, that the way that the offense looked. Not to take away from the Thunder and how well they are my favorite to come out the Western Conference. But that Miami Heat offense is it's a struggle. But how'd you feel about this game?
It is a struggle. It is a brutal watch. And there's, again, some Jimmy Butler chicanery. It's like he clearly limps off the floor at the 7:34 mark in the game, at 7:19 mark in the game. He clearly limps his way to the tunnel after getting tangled up with Lou Dort. But yet he's ruled out with an illness and not like an ankle injury or something more. He's like, all of a sudden his tummy hurts and he's out of the game. But we just saw him have an ankle injury, or what we thought was an ankle injury. So who knows what's going on that end. I thought that this was a really big game from the Thunder standpoint of the Thunder have struggled historically with the Miami Heat zone. The zone forced them into more turnovers than they typically are forced into. They had 14 turnovers tonight, but the Thunder did a good job of adjusting to that and scoring enough to beat the Heat. But you mix the Heat's putrid offense without Jimmy Butler with the Thunder's defense, which is the best in the NBA. And right now, we're still early in the year, but statistically one of the best defenses of all time. And yeah, it's pretty tough sledding for Miami, who, to their credit, still went on plenty of runs in this game. It's just that the Thunder were able to match those runs and get the win in the end. But Bam had it going early. Tyler Hero was electric, but past that, nothing to really show for this one.
Yeah, and then you also lose Bam in this. He gets hit in the face by his own teammate as well. Like, the Thunder's defense, I was so surprised by the way the Thunder lost the NBA Cup, mainly because of how good their defense is. It was a bad shooting night from the Thunder. That's one thing that kind of can limit them at times, is that three-point shooting when they need it the most. But tonight, 41% from three, 45% overall from the field. You get 33 points from Jalen Williams. And the question I want to throw to you here, one of the things that stopped the Thunder last season in the playoffs was their inability to hit shots as that series went on, as the playoffs went on. Are you as fearful of that this season as it was evident last season?
Yeah, I think that you have to have some concern level because of what you saw on Tuesday, where it was a similar storyline where you saw the Bucks crowd the paint and play ultra aggressive on Shea and J-Dub, and especially with Jalen Williams. He does not like guys being physical with him, getting up under him. He's one of those taller players with the ball in his hands that hates whenever you have leverage on him. And the Bucks gave him fits. And so when those two guys aren't going offensively and the drive and kick stuff isn't working, they shot 5 for 32 from 3 on Tuesday. When that stuff happens, there's just nothing they can do. I mean, again, they held the Bucks to 97 points and lost. There's nothing you can really do to overcome that. I think that what you're hoping for as of this present moment, without any sort of trades or trade deadline acquisitions, what you're hoping for is, unlike last year, this year you have more options to have a good shooting night. Like tonight, Lou Dort went 4 for 5 from 3. He was dreadful Tuesday. It just so happened Tuesday, everybody was bad, not just one guy or two guys. But when this team's fully healthy, they have capable enough shooters to where you feel like you can find the right piece. From Isaiah Joe to Cason Wallace, who shot 40% from 3 last year. He's dipped down to 20-something% this year. Alex Caruso shot 40% from 3 last year. He's dipped down to 28% this year. Like you feel like from those 3 guys to Dort to Chet Holmgren as a 3-point shooting big whenever he returns, that you can find enough shooting on this roster to kind of fill that hole. By the same token, one way to alleviate that concern would just be to go get true sharpshooters. Right now, you have a bunch of guys capable of shooting. You don't have a bunch of guys who you know for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt, is going to knock down 3 threes in a game.
Yeah, I mean, and luckily they do have some players that step up when the time's needed. And I know Alex Caruso has not shot the ball very well yet, but as somebody who is a Bulls fan, I would not be surprised if Alex Caruso is saving it all, and we're talking about Caruso shooting 40% for the entire playoffs. I just wouldn't be surprised at that at all.
I hope that you're right, and he has been better in the last 10 games for OKC. So you saw that extremely cold streak for him kind of bury his season percentages. But the last 10 games, he's been really good for OKC.
Chet, of course, everybody's wondering how good this. You mentioned early on that they have one of the best defenses in the NBA history right now, early in the season. How much better do you think? And that's a scary question there. How much better can the defense get once Chet is healthy?
It can become the best defense of all time, I think, because of what you can do. I mean, you think about this. This is the second straight year where the Thunder have had a top 5 defense. And last year they were 3rd. This year they're number 1 going away. And they've done it with only 1 healthy center. And at times this season, 0 healthy centers, because there was that 2-week period where neither Chet or Hartenstein were healthy. But last year, they only had 1 healthy center. This year, 1 healthy center. When you finally give this team 2 centers to where they can play 48 minutes of true rim protection, the sky's the limit for what they can do defensively, because in that, it's not as though you have to abandon small ball, which is actually really good for the Thunder's defense. And so now you think about it, Haize, they can go double bigs for the first time ever. They've never gone double bigs. You have Hartenstein and Chet. You can go Hartenstein and Chet solo, where you just sporadically put them in and blanket the game in 48 minutes of truly elite rim protection. It's not just that those two guys are capable. They're like high-level rim protectors, and for Chet, he's absolutely elite. I think Hartenstein's elite as well, but you can just give him the really good tag if you want to. And they can go small. So how do you prepare as an offense for possession to possession? You could see 2 bigs, you could see no bigs, you could see 1 big, and anything in between. It creates this uncomfortability for your opponent, and we just talked about what players look like when they're not comfortable. They look pretty bad, and so like offenses will labor and struggle. So I can't even begin to fathom how good this team can be when these guys get healthy, because Hartenstein gets in the passing lanes, Chet gets in the passing lanes. They each can help you on the glass, which even Hartenstein by himself has helped you become sort of neutral on the glass instead of being a lopsided loss. Chet helps you there. Chet gets blocks, and those blocks lead to loose balls, which the Thunder get and go out and transition and score. I don't even know how to answer. I think they can be one of the best defenses ever if they're fully healthy.
Yeah, and it's really scary, and especially as we know as the playoffs go on, like it becomes more and more about the way that you adjust and things like that. And I see it's going to be so hard for teams to adjust what the OKC Thunder can do defensively when they're fully healthy, that it's really a scary proposition, because whatever coach can come up with a scheme to outmatch and outclass, and Coach Mike D, as well as like a really good coach. I wish we had him in Chicago. Like, the Thunder they're my favorites right now to win the NBA title, and I can't wait to keep covering it and see what they do, man.
Yeah, I still would give the edge to Boston to win the NBA title, because the same thing we talked about the Cavs, of like, these are 2 great teams. They each have more questions than Boston does. I don't know that you're going to get a consistent 3-point
That's
shot
true.
from OKC. I don't know that Jalen Williams, who was brutal offensively against Dallas, has fixed his postseason woes in one go around. That's the thing that people forget about the Thunder. This is going to be these guys' second ever postseason attempt. And like Haize, who around the NBA that you now think of as a champion superstar only took one postseason blemish? You usually have to grow up in the playoffs a few years in a row before you get over that hump. But the Thunder are in better position than anybody in the West right now to get to the finals. And not to say they won't squander that positioning, but it's true with how good that they're playing. I think that when you look at this Thunder team, though, it is fun to think about what the outcomes could be for Oklahoma City and what they could end up doing. Because you mentioned their defense and we talked about their centers. How many times watching a postseason series have you seen a guy have a really good defensive series, but by game 5, 6, 7, the superstar cracks the code and he's worn you down.
Mm-hmm.
You've had to guard him for 48 minutes and you just don't have your legs under you. The Thunder can throw at you Alex Caruso, one of the best defenders in the world, Lou Dort, one of the best defenders in the world, Cason Wallace, one of the most underrated defenders in the world, and just keep coming at you and punching you. There's no rest for the weary of superstars in this league in the half court for Oklahoma City in the playoffs, and that alone could really carry them.
It'll be fun to watch. Any last thoughts before we get out of here tonight?
Haize, this has been a blast. It was a really fun night in the association. Glad we got to cover it all.
Absolutely. Very fun night. And make sure you guys also are going to LockedOnDaily.com because your favorite Locked On podcast has a daily newsletter now. So make sure you guys go and sign up for that as well. You can check me out on Locked On Bulls. You can check Rylan out over on Locked On Thunder as well. And we're signing off for tonight, and we'll see you guys on the next game night, y'all. Peace.